Yeah, good afternoon,
Good
everyone.
afternoon, everyone, and also good afternoon to you, Missy Ching.
Yeah,
So,
good
let me
afternoon.
do an introduction first. My name is Eugenie, and I'm a psychology intern in Process Psychology Center. So, for today's live talk, we have Miss Ching as one of our speaker. So, Miss Ching, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Li Ching. I'm a clinical psychologist at Process Psychology Center.
All right, hi, Miss Ching. So, today we're gonna talk about self-discrepancy in social media. So, before we start, can I ask you a question, Miss Ching?
Sure.
All right. So, can you briefly explain what is self-discrepancy in your perspective?
Hmm. Self-discrepancy is kind of a term that relates to several few concepts, but it's relating to how we see ourselves and if there's any gap in between these different aspects of ourselves. Like our self-perception, we have different aspects, and I think later we can talk more about what are these aspects. And
Mm,
self-discrepancy is the gap between those aspects.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do agree with Miss Iching's point. So basically, self-discrepancy is the gap in between our actual self and ideal and odd self.
Yeah.
So when people evaluate their actual self against the internalized norms, social norms, or evaluations from others, they will perceive that there is a distance in between their actual self and ideal or odd self. So the gap, the distance is known as self-discrepancy, and it may cause unpleasant feelings lah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned three concepts of ourself, which is some of the main concepts in self-discrepancy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Self-discrepancy theory is a theory that's being formulated by a psychologist called Edward Torrey Higgins,
Mm-hmm.
where he mentioned self-discrepancy theory that include these three: actual self, ideal self, and also this odd self. So
Yes.
if you need, maybe you can talk a bit more about what are these three concepts of self.
All right, sure, no problem. So for the first one, which is actual self, is actually our true self. It is the connective structures that contains of all self-describing qualities that an individual is aware about. So regardless of whether these traits are come from self-evaluations or evaluations from others. Yeah, so this one
Mm.
is the actual self. So the second one is ideal self. So ideal self is actually the self concept of what they ideally like to be. So it is a representation of the qualities and traits they hope to acquire or achieve it. So this is normally predicated through an individual's personal aspirations, dreams, wishes, goals, and etc. Yeah. So the last one is odd selves. So this is actually a self-reference or personal benchmark that what others believe they should become or should be. So it's basically like what others want us to do. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this is normally being developed in terms of others, evaluations or standard towards us or social and religious norms. Yeah.
Mm. So in these three aspects, actually, we can see that there is two different standpoints in which one is how we see ourselves and also how others see us.
Mm-mm-mm.
So when you say about the odd self, there is this obligation, these morals that comes from what we learn from the surrounding, like maybe our religion, what our teachers teach us, what our parents teach us. So how other people see that we should do, we should
Mm-hmm.
behave. That is one aspect of the odd self.
Yeah.
And in the other hand, how we see ourselves is like when we learn all this, the shoes, we should do this morally. This is right thing to do, and do we incorporate that as our odd self, which means that do we think that we should do this? That is also one aspect of the odd self. And that also applies with the actual self, with the ideal self, where how you actually see
mm,
yourself for the actual self, how you see yourself as a person, and how other people see you as a
yeah,
person. So that actually there's two aspects in each of these self-concept,
mm, mm,
which is also the same as ideal self, like
yeah,
who we wish to be, my own hope and my own dreams, and as well as maybe other people also have hopes for us, like maybe they wish us to be happy, successful. So those are the hopes regarding the ideal self. It can come from us, it can also come from others, and how we incorporate these different perspective into one self concept,
mm,
which
mm,
the three self concepts.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, I do
o-
agree with that, Ching. But
Okay.
um, as per today, we are talking about social media. So there's
Hmm.
actually another self, another aspect of self which is developed, which is known as
Oh.
virtual self. So
Ah.
this virtual self is actually the persona we created in a virtual settings.
Mhm.
So for example, like our avatar, our behaviors, the knowledge and skills we presented online
Mhm.
is the things that we presume is appropriate in that specific virtual environment.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So different person can have a lot of personas in terms of in the online setting.
Ah. Okay. Does that mean that we can have different virtual self in the online setting?
Mm, I would say yes. Like when we interact with this certain type of person, we will act as different type of persona to gain
Yeah.
some different type of um impression, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm,
That is quite, it makes sense as well when we are interacting with different communities. We may create different versions of our virtual self, but eventually there maybe there will be one that is the main self on the online world that we identify that as the main character in the
mm,
online world.
yeah, yeah.
So this virtual self is how we present ourselves in the online world.
Yes, agree with that. It's
Hmm.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
before we go on, I would like to share about my personal experience in self-discrepancy to let others know what actually self-discrepancy is. So as we know, social media is being commonly used by everybody in different age groups. So including me, when I was young, I do experience a lot of self-discrepancy. So when I saw that people online are having those luxurious life, self-disciplined lifestyle, pretty physical appearance and good body images, I
Hmm.
will I will tend to perceive all those things as my ideal self,
Ah.
and slowly I will feel like, oh, there's a huge gap in between my actual self and my ideal self. So
Hmm.
I do feel very anxious about it, but I would like to say that these things is very common being experienced by users in social media. So let's dip into the details and we will tell you how to cope with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also one thing that I would like to add on when we talk
Mhm.
about our ideal self and our odd self. Actually, the combination of these two, we can call them as a self guide, in which we use this self guide to evaluate how we are being ourselves. Are we actually complying with our own self guide? How far is it we are from this self guide? Uh, our actual self is from this self guide. So this combination of this ideal self and the odd self,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that is the self guide lah. But yeah, we can also use the term ideal self or odd self,
Uh,
referring to different aspects. Ideal self is for the dream, hope, and the odd self is for the morals, obligations. So yeah, okay.
mm-hmm.
Maybe we can go into further about how these areas of self are being presented in the online world. Hmm.
Sure. So let's discuss about how does actually self-discrepancy is being developed in the social media. So in the current era, the rapid growth of social media platforms such as those Instagrams, Facebooks, TikTok, and etc. Actually has increased people's abilities to strategically present themselves. So people are freely to build their online personas and identity in virtual environments, even though it does not align with their true self. So for example, people can build their online personas and identities in terms of their ideal self just to get a sense of fulfillment in online environment. Or maybe they can build their online personas with fake informations or identities according to the social norms and to seek for social acceptance. Or maybe they can edit their images, their physical appearance into a more appealing image to put on online to put it in online environment. Yeah. So therefore, when times goes by, there will be a gap developed in between their actual self and virtual self. Hence, it is the self discrepancy lah.
It is also like there is in between in among the youngsters lah.
Mm-mm.
Actually, there are studies that says that the youngsters, a lot of young people are more, how to say, they would like to accept the online community. Let's say if they are involved in the online community, they are more wanting to feel fit in, wanting to like feel that they have the same values as the online group. Also because of they are searching for themselves, that the youngsters they are in the stage of searching for self-identity. So they might also feel like while they are exploring these online communities, there are certain values in these communities that they want to incorporate into themselves. So that's how they start to develop this virtual self that they present themselves as having these values that they want to have the same values as the group in the
Mm-mm.
online community. So they present this characteristic in their virtual self.
Yeah, understand. I saw that there's a questions for us. Can
Yeah.
you see it?
Yep, I can.
Is there any possibilities or relationship of Syria that became a dissociative personality disorder?
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. That's a pretty um personality disorder is a pretty severe kind of disorder.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
if is there a possibility of severe self-discrepancy? I would say that most of the time, why people develop personality disorder is because of the emotions, the stress that comes from the environment and how they perceive themselves. If the self-discrepancy is so severe that it actually affect their emotion, give them a lot of stress.
Mm.
And if at the same time there's also a lot of external stresses like traumas, like they face stresses as in like maybe they are experiencing change in life, they experience lose as in like lose a job or lose anyone.
Mm-mm.
So these all kinds of stress can build up and that may lead to a certain mental health disorder. But if it's just self-discrepancy,
Mm.
that can be one of the factor, but it would not be directly linked to a personality disorder. I would
Understand.
say.
Understand.
Hmm.
Mm. Yeah, I do learn something now. Okay. Mm.
Hope that
All
answers
right.
your question, Abby.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so since we have understood what is actually self-discrepancy and how does it develop in the online world,
Hmm.
so now let's discuss about what are the causes of self-discrepancy in social media. So the first one, which is the most common one, is called social comparison. So what is actually social comparison? So it is actually like individuals value their personal and social worth by comparing themselves with the people they saw online. So when individuals compare themselves, like for example, when individuals compare themselves with those idealized images in social media, they will tend to perceive it as the ideal self and integrate the values of online groups into their self-guide, which is the one you mentioned just now. It is the combination of ideal and old self. So it will lead to a change in the self-guide,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it more complex and difficult to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, the gap get bigger and bigger and experiencing a greater self-discrepancy.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. When they compare themselves to others, so that
Mm,
makes a virtual self, the self-guide become more complex.
yes.
Right? Yeah, that can be one of the causes.
Yeah. And the second one will be idealized self-presentation. So this is
Mm.
like usually the users in social media platforms often encourage the users to only present an idealized version of themselves. So people may selectively only present their positive aspects, their highlight moments of life, achievements, experiences, in the online world. So this will create a discrepancy between their actual self and their idealized self they portray online, because everybody will still experience some negative side in their actual in their
Mm.
realistic world. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm,
That's, I think this would also affect their virtual self, as in how they present themselves online. And if they are just posting the positive things, other people may perceive that the person online maybe is someone who doesn't face too much challenges, but in
mm,
actuality they are also struggling in a way.
yeah.
So that creates the discrepancy.
Yeah. Correct. All
Hmm.
right. So the next one will be FOMO, the fear of missing out. It is one of the causes of self-discrepancy. So social media can amplify the fear of missing out on experiences or opportunities that others seems to be enjoying. So this fear can drive individuals to portray themselves in way to project a lifestyle or a type of person that they believe others will admire or envy them. So even if that one is not aligned with their true interests or values. So, for example, um, nowadays there's an exercise trend which is known as Pilates. I don't know if you know or not. Yeah, it's a lot of people online are going to this exercise. So, for example,
Oh,
like
can you tell more about what is this exercise?
okay,
Pilates.
yeah, Pilates. It is a combination of yoga,
Oh,
and we will use some machines to do the yoga type of exercise. Yeah, so a
okay.
lot of people are currently going to that exercise.
Mm.
So when a person sees it, then they will feel like, oh, a lot of people are going to it. They will feel like, am I missing out something which everybody is enjoying? Am I missing out some opportunities that everybody is going? So he or she may perceive it as an ideal self, and in order to fit into the social groups or social media trending, he or she will just join the exercise, even though actually it's not their one of their interests, or
Mm.
it's not one of their hobbies. Actually, they doesn't like it. Yeah, but they just do it because they wanted to gain some social media approval. They want to fit into the social media group. Yeah, so this is one of
Yeah.
the example I think of.
Mm. The fear
Mhm.
of missing out is driving them to want to match with the majority.
Yeah,
So even though it might be different from what they actually enjoy,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the fear is actually driving them to do so.
Mm,
So in between that, when they are doing something that they don't really enjoy, but then in order to present themselves as in order to catch up lah, as in to catch up with the trend, they still continue to do it. So there might be a gap in between that,
yes.
and maybe that will cause a certain dissatisfaction feeling tired of having to keep up with something that they don't really enjoy. So
Mm.
all the stresses might come.
Yes, correct. All right, so let's go to our next one. So the next one is social pressure and validation. So as we know that social media have these features like likes, shares, comments, and numbers of followers. So this can influence how individuals present themselves online. So individuals may tend to adopt some behaviors or persona that are perceived as more likable or socially desirable to seek for validations and social acceptance. So when times goes by, this contributes to a discrepancy between their actual self and their virtual self. Yes.
It's like saying more likes and more shares
Yeah.
equals to more social acceptance, more
Yes,
validation.
correct. So
Okay.
the numbers, which is the numbers of likes, the numbers of followers can really influence and make people have this kind of anxious feeling, I would say.
Yeah. And one of our viewers
Yeah.
said, Kiki said that FOMO is not only applicable to the young adults. Indeed. So as we are mingling with our peers, even if they are not our peers, they as long as we are interacting with the social media, with the society, no matter how old are you, you will feel like, oh, I want to keep up.
Mm,
I want to keep up with the society like that.
yeah, correct.
No matter young, old, middle age. Yeah, that also applies.
Yeah, correct. Understand. All right, now let's go to our next one. So the next one is perception management. So the concerns about reputations and social acceptance can influence on how individuals manage their online personas. So they may engage in impression management strategies to control on how others perceive them, potentially distorting their true identity and creating a discrepancy between their actual and virtual selves. So, for example, like the social media may encourage or make people think that those highly educated person or knowledgeable person are those who can seek for higher social acceptance and validations. Yeah. So the individuals may um, present themselves as a highly educated person, even though actually their actual self is not aligned with it. So they just present it online just to seek for a higher social acceptance from people online. Yeah.
Mhm.
So this then will create a discrepancy between their actual self and virtual selves.
Yeah, like the bio and someone write that they have been to what
Yeah.
school. Is it like
Mm.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it is.
Mm.
Mm.
They are trying to make like manage their impression as someone knowledgeable, so they
Mm.
might just write something that makes them seem like someone who is
Mm.
knowledgeable, but in actuality, if they are not really that knowledgeable, then yeah, that discrepancy can happen.
Yes, correct.
Mhm.
All right. So the last factor of course in causes of self discrepancy is the technological factors. So as we know that there's a lot of as we know that the technology now is very advanced, there's like filters, Photoshop editing tools, and etc. So these tools can prioritize certain types of contents or interactions that shape how individuals present themselves and interact with others on social media.
Mhm.
So, for example, people can use those filters or Photoshop tools to edit their physical appearance according to the social norms in order to get social affirmations or acceptance. Or maybe they can use those special editing tools that can change their voice into a more social acceptance voice in a virtual setting to interact with others. So slowly, this can also create the discrepancy in between their actual self and their virtual self.
Hmm. Okay. So this the one you mentioned about technology is like is it like a tool for people to create this kind of self-discrepancy?
Mm, I would say yes.
Hmm.
It is a tool to not directly create a discrepancy, but like on how people perceive it and change their physical appearance, and then create a gap in between the
Ah.
then create the self discrepancy lah.
Yeah,
Mm.
that might, in one way, the technological tools can worsen or increase that
Mm.
kind of gap, as they they edit their photo, they use Photoshop, and in the long term, in the long run, that may create a bigger gap, wider and wider gap between their virtual self and their actual self.
Mm.
But in the beginning, um, when we look at like there are also some studies that says that in Instagram users who have higher self discrepancy, the actual and ideal self discrepancy actually have more tendency to manipulate their photos. So if you feel that your ideal self is much prettier than your actual self, when you want to post your photos online, you might use these technologies to help make your photos to become nearer to your ideal
Mm.
self. So when you post the photos, the photo that you post online is actually nearer to your ideal
Mm.
self. So you post the photo that you don't because there's lesser gap in that photo itself
Mm-hmm.
with the ideal self. So you don't feel that much of discrepancy. You don't feel dissatisfied. You feel okay. This picture after I edit, I feel much better to post it. I feel much confident to post it online. So okay, you feel better to post it online. But
Uh-huh.
if you want to post your actual photo, that there is a bigger gap. So
Yeah.
people with higher self discrepancy tends to use these tools to manipulate their photos lah.
Mm.
So it's in a way one of the things that can increase the gap.
Yeah, and I will also add in a point is that, like just now when you say that when they wanted to post something online, they will feel like they edit their physical appearance to be more to accordingly to the ideal self, and then they will be more comfortable to post it online. So when maybe when there's people online saw it and then they wanted to make friends with them, and then they wanted to meet it face to face, and then during that time I would say it may
That's where the
worsen
anxiety
the
comes from.
frequency. Yeah.
Ah, what if the person see my true self? How am I gonna how am I gonna
Yeah.
do? What are they gonna
Mm,
think? And then all these emotions comes up
mm,
lah. And seems
mm, mm.
like Kiki also relate to that. That
Yeah.
the friends also used to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people also have the habit of editing, photoshopping their photos. And
Yes,
to a
correct.
certain extent, it helps to present a better virtual self. But we also have to be aware of what's the effect it has when you are using these tools. Are they affecting your self discrepancy or not?
Mm-mm.
Hmm.
Yes. So talking about effects, now let's go into the effects of self-discrepancy in social media. So the first one is psychological distress. So this is when individuals having this continuous understanding of the distance of self-discrepancy may leads to the feelings of inadequacy, diminished low self-esteem, anxiety, and also depression feelings. So when times goes by and if those feelings do not get better but get worsened, then it may also contribute to mental health disorders, which
Yeah,
is
like
kind
we
of severe.
mentioned in the beginning, the one of this is one of the factors, the negative emotion, the stress that comes from it can be one of the factors for a mental disorder to happen.
Mm-mm. Yes, correct. And the second one will be behavior changes. So people might change their behaviors, appearance, or interests to reduce the discrepancy and gain social media approval. So this is like people might change those behaviors, appearance, and interests accordingly to the social norms. But actually, it is not aligning with their personal values or desires. This then can lead to an inauthenticity and internal conflicts, and also increase the gap in between their self discrepancy. Yeah.
Like when we talk about the online community just now, they
Mm-mm.
want to present their virtual self as a person who can fit into the community. So they might present themselves as more friendlier
Mm-mm.
when they are online. So sometimes you can see someone who is um who seem like very talkative, very social, like a social butterfly online, is actually very introverted in real life.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
you
It's true.
can, yeah, like they want to fit into that online community, so that's why they present themselves as friendlier. They are able to, also one of the thing about online community is maybe some is has more anonymity. You are able to hide your true identity when you are interacting online.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you are free. It has more freedom. You have more freedom to create what kind of person you want to be online. So
It's true.
some people may create that virtual self according to their ideal self, how they wish they would like to be.
Mm-mm.
Um, so in a sense, like just now when we talk about the posting of the photo, when
Mm-mm.
you create a self that is more closer to that ideal self,
Mm-hmm.
you have less discomfort to present that virtual self.
Yeah,
So the
understand.
gap between the virtual self and your ideal self is actually lesser in this setting, in this online community. Mm.
Mm-hmm. I have
So
a question pop up.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like for example, like we said, we have mentioned that ideal self is actually um, the self which we wanted to be, we are more likely to be. So what if the things, the goals, the wants, the wish we created for our ideal self is actually is accordingly to the social media norms. Like for example, actually I'm okay with my body type, but then the social media keep encouraging us like, oh, you need to be this slim, you need to have this muscle, you need to have six packs, then you will perceive it as your ideal self. Or actually that one is considered as odd self because it's
Ah.
accordingly to the social norms.
The odd self is more on the morals, what you are supposed to do, right? Like
Yeah, okay,
your
I
duties,
understand.
maybe your role as a student, your role as a worker or children,
Mhm.
parents. But your ideal self is what you would like. What would you like to be? Would you like to be? If there is this social norms, and if you take that social norm into your own ideal self, then that becomes your ideal self. Even
Okay.
if in the beginning maybe you feel like, okay, yeah, I feel fine with my body type, but then as time goes by, you start to incorporate these social norms into your ideal self. That means that your ideal self has slowly become further from your actual self.
Ah, okay, okay, I
That means
understand.
your ideal self is changing. It's being influenced by that social norm.
Okay, yes, correct,
Mm,
correct. Thank you for answering that question. All right.
yeah, you're welcome.
Mm-mm. So the next one is identity fragmentation. I would say this one is a little bit similar with the question someone asked just now about the dissociative personality disorders, but that one is more severe. This one is about like people may identity fragmentation is about like people may struggle to reconcile their actual self with the various personas they project online.
Yeah,
So this may lead to a confusion about their true identity and values. Yeah. Mm.
yeah,
So
like
when they have a lot of personas, different type of persona they project online. So they may be confused like, oh, which type of persona is actually what they want? Which
Mm-hmm.
type of persona is actually their true identities and values they are interested in?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
especially for adolescent, young adults when
yeah,
they are in the
because
stage
they are
of
in
trying to
exploration.
find,
Mm.
yeah, they are in the stage of trying to find their self-identity,
Mm-mm.
but at the same time, they also want to fit in with the surrounding.
Mm.
There's also the
Mm.
influence from their peers, the online communities. So there's this struggle of I want to find my self identity, but at the same time I'm receiving a lot of influence from all these sources. So which one of them is actually what I want? So this
Mm-mm.
kind of confusion may come up.
Yes, true. Yes, correct. I do agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is decrease in life satisfaction. So when individuals may perceive that their achievements, appearance, or experiences are falling short compared to the standards set by others online. So this may impact their overall life satisfaction. So other than that, when you are experiencing some self discrepancy, you will have this psychological distress where we mentioned earlier. So these emotions also will decrease our life satisfaction, as you may have doubts on yourself, you will question your worthy. So it may also this decrease our life satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
The life satisfaction is also related to our quality of life as well, lah.
Mm-mm.
Our mental well-being. So that can affect quite a lot of areas in the mental health. Yeah, in the mental health, lah.
Mm-mm. Yes, correct. Okay, so now we have known that the severity of the effects on self-discrepancy. So now let's discuss on how to cope with them. What are the coping mechanisms?
Sure.
So the first one is, oh, what were you saying just now? Sorry.
Sure, sure. We can continue with that.
Okay,
Coping.
so the
Yeah.
first one is to increase in self-awareness. So we
Mm-hmm.
should recognize and acknowledge the gaps between our actual self and our ideal self or old self. So when we understand about what aspects of yourself you are dissatisfied with or feel not aligned with your ideal self. So it is like you need to be aware about what be aware about the self discrepancy first in
Mm-hmm.
in order to cope with it. Yes.
Yeah. As in the clinical setting, if you want to change yourself, the first step is to be aware of what you need to change. Uh,
Yeah. Mm,
yeah.
it's true. All right. So the second one is to set realistic goals. So sometimes people may um, perceive their ideal self into something which is kind of unrealistic. So we should break down our ideal self into smaller, achievable, and realistic goals. So this can help us in making progress towards the ideal self and reduce the discrepancy over time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not to say that self-discrepancy is always bad. Because according to the
Mm.
self-discrepancy theory from Higgins,
Yeah.
this theory says that our behavior is actually motivated is motivated to reduce the gap, the self
Mm.
discrepancy, because when we experience the self discrepancy we will experience the negative emotion, the discomfort. So in order to reduce this discomfort, our um, we will be motivated to meet to try to reduce that gap
Mm.
by trying to meet our ideal self. And
Yes.
if your ideal self, as you mentioned, if you make your ideal self as something more realistic, something that actually helpful,
Mm-mm.
then this self discrepancy is actually helpful for you to improve yourself.
Yes.
So you are improving towards like a goal that's realistic, that's beneficial, and how you can make this goal to be more realistic, you can also use this technique we call SMART goal. If you want to, for example, we can talk about appearance wise. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to make your appearance to be something closer to your ideal self, maybe you want to lose some weight, then when you are doing this SMART goal, you can like set that the smaller goal, like specific goal, maybe in 1 month, you can, the more realistic goal is to reduce 2 kilo. So that kind of goal is although small, but it's more realistic.
Yes.
And when it's more realistic and smaller, it reduces the stress compared
Mm.
to if you look at the models. Wow, they have 45 kg at 165 cm, and you want to achieve the ideals. That's quite difficult,
Yeah.
lah. Like
Yeah.
imagine how big the gap you have to
Mm.
cross over, and compared to if you just try to focus on, okay, 2 kilos per month. Okay,
Yeah.
that's much more doable. That's much more
Yeah.
easier.
Mm-mm.
Mm,
And when you achieve that 2 kilos, and you'll be proud of yourself, and you saw the progress, then you are more motivated in progressing your other goals too.
yeah.
Yeah.
If there's
Mm-mm.
other areas you want to improve and that's realistic for you to do so, of course, you can use this SMART goal as a way to help you improve yourself in a way that's beneficial and healthy lah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm,
All right. So the next one is to practice self-compassion. So when you are working towards your ideal self, you need to remember to be kind to yourself, and yeah, to be kind to yourself, because this self discrepancy can lead to feelings of inadequacy and also self criticism. So it is important to treat yourself with understanding and
mm.
compassion. Yeah.
Yeah, understand that there is we start from a place where there is discrepancy. That's why we need to start changing. So the point where you are, the starting point is often at that starting point, you would feel all these negative emotion.
Mm,
But being compassionate towards yourself can help you being able to accept, being able to manage this discomfort at the first
yeah.
starting point. Lah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
as you progress a bit more, as you improve yourself, then this discomfort will also reduce.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Understand? Correct. Oh, can you talk about, do you mean self-talk?
Mm.
I would say can also. Self-talk, like
Yeah,
telling yourself you are great, you're doing a good job. Yeah, that one can help also to be
with
kind to
the
yourself.
with self-compassion. When you
Mm-mm.
are tell like imagine like a parent praising a child for getting a small accomplishment. So of course that will make the child
Yeah.
happy. And if
Yeah.
we are the ones who give ourselves the compliments for the achievement, the small achievement that we achieve, that's also a form of self-talk that's focusing on being compassionate to ourselves. Or even if we failed at something, we this week we didn't manage to follow the healthy diet. Like I
Uh-uh.
think one of the common challenges that people who wants to um, get a healthy body weight, this may be
Mm-mm.
one of the challenge they need in terms of consistency. So even if you failed one time, it's okay to talk to tell yourself like how a compassionate parent would tell a child if they fail, they would tell the child that it's okay, you tried this time,
Mm-mm.
but at least you learn something from this failure, and then next time you can improve better.
Yes.
So this kind of encouragement is we can also use this self-talk to tell ourselves it's okay, I can improve next time. So just remember what I learned from this experience, and I'll use that to help myself next time.
Mm-mm. Yes, correct.
Mm,
Yeah. All right. So This one, the one you talk about, is also one of the coping mechanism for self-discrepancy, which is practice self-acceptance. So
Mm,
embrace who you are, including your strengths and weaknesses. So accepting yourself can reduce the distress caused by self-discrepancy. So when you're working through your goals and you are working through the goals where to reduce your discrepancy, it can also you will need to like accept and embrace who you are, like for example the example you gave just now, when we didn't achieve the 2 kilo per month, then
mm,
you will also need to accept that failure, as you already try your best already. It's not that because of one failure um then you just gave up.
mm,
It's not like that,
mm.
because you actually tried your best already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so accept the flaws, accept the the mistakes you done during the progress. Yeah.
The self-acceptance actually also helps in terms of we can reduce the gap between the actual self and ideal self by reducing that to make the ideal self closer to our actual self. If
Ah.
we are able to accept that we have flaws, my body shape is not as pretty as that, but I'm okay with it.
Mm,
So I accept my own appearance, my personality, as long as it doesn't harm myself or
yeah.
others, I accept myself. It
Mm,
means that you are able to change your ideal self back closer to your actual self.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. It's true.
Mm,
Sorry. Yeah. All right. So the next one is to focus on your own strength. So you will need to identify your core values, your strength, and prioritize living according to them. So this can
mm,
help to shift focus away from those unrealistic ideas and towards meaningful personal growth. Yeah.
mm.
So to
In order
just
to
to
do that, you also have to develop a clearer sense of
mm,
self because when you
mm,
talk about values, core belief, and all, those are a part of your self-identity.
yeah.
If you identify yourself as someone who is kind,
Mm-mm,
so um, does letting yourself feel this negative emotion, is it an action of being kind to yourself? You might want to consider that when you are setting the goals too high or being too
mm,
harsh on yourself, are you living according to your values? So, in order to have these values, you will also need to be aware of your self-identity.
mm,
What's the values that you identify yourself having? So that's also something that you have to go through a process of self-exploration first
mm,
before you know your self-identity. And if you have a stronger sense of self-identity, that can also help with the self-esteem. And when your self-esteem is higher, that can also reduce
mm,
uh, self-esteem, as in you are able to accept your actual self. You are able to come to peace with your actual self and know that what you want is actually helpful for you. Your ideal self is not gonna harm you, but when you are improving towards the ideal self, there are benefits for it. So when
mm,
you have a stronger self-esteem, that also reduces the
mm,
self-discrepancy. You won't be
mm.
setting too high of a goal, too
Yeah.
unrealistic of ideal self. So there's a lot of like a chain reaction.
Yeah, I understand.
Starting starting with knowing your own values.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. Yes, I agree with that. All right, so for the last one is to develop healthy coping mechanisms. So this is like to engage with activities that promotes relaxation and stress reduction. So such as exercising, your hobbies, or spending time with friends or family that give you positive energies. Yeah,
Mm.
this is one of the healthy coping mechanisms lah.
This coping mechanism, in one way, that can they can help you with the negative emotion, the discomfort you experience when you perceive the self-discrepancy. So you are able to regulate that emotion while you are working towards your goals.
Mm.
Yeah. And then because sometimes when people experience this how to say self-discrepancy, they
Mm-hmm.
might use certain coping strategies that are not really helpful.
Yeah.
For example, if the person sense that in the self-discrepancy, their actual self and their ideal self has too much of a gap, it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult to face this kind of emotion in real life.
Mm-hmm.
They might go to online community as a form of avoidance or escape. Because when we mentioned just now, it's easier to face their virtual self to face their virtual self because it is nearer to their ideal self.
Mm-mm.
So they might use that channel, the online community, as a form of escape or avoidance,
Mm-mm.
avoiding the real life because the real life is harder to face. So
Mm-hmm.
that might develop into some form of internet addiction,
Mm-mm.
maybe gaming addiction, or some people may just try to vent their emotion in the online community, which can affect the people in that community, right? When we just vent without regulate our emotion, without choosing the words, we just bang, 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 bang. That can affect lah, the people
Mm-mm.
around there. So if we are able to be aware that why we are doing this, what's the effect of our actions, then we know there is other there is actually other options like this healthy coping
Mm-mm.
mechanism, coping strategies. We
Mm-mm.
can talk to a friend or a family who is supportive. We can go
Mm-mm.
exercise or we can do some hobbies that we actually like in order to regulate this emotion, as
Mm.
well as going to therapy can also help you try to regulate and manage your emotion in a more helpful way,
Yeah.
because of course addiction is something that's gonna harm us in the long term. So we don't want to over rely on the online what is this online usage. Uh,
Mm-mm.
so there is other options
Yeah.
as actually. Mm,
Mm-mm. Yeah. It is. It's true.
mm,
Okay. So our life is going to come to an end. So let's have
yeah,
a conclusion.
yeah.
So to sum up everything, in the current era, social media has been commonly used by everyone in different type of age groups, and self-discrepancy is being commonly experienced by the users in social media. So as we have discussed the causes of self-discrepancy in social media and the effects also, the effects on individuals, the effects of self-discrepancy in people's mental health. So it is important for people to take in awareness about self-discrepancy and also to develop a healthy coping mechanism to cope with it. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. All right. Thank you for the conclusion, Eugenie. Do we have any more questions? If
Mm,
no,
no then.
then all right. I think that concludes our IG live today. Thank you everyone for your attendance. Thank you for your attention and your comments.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and also
Thank
thanks to
you.
Miss Ying.
Thank you,
All
Eugenie.
right, bye bye.
Bye bye.